Forfar Dramatic Society has many ambitions. It seeks to give local people an opportunity to engage in dramatic activities, including acting, stage management, directing and publicity. Just some of the tasks involved in running a busy amateur theatre group. And we also seek to bring high-quality drama to our local audiences. And we seek to upgrade our drama halls into a suitable venue for the performance of community theatre for our audiences in comfort and safety. To this end, we have been involved in applying for funding to insulate our drama hall and other public areas of the building. Solid wall insulation is an effective way to stop wasting energy and money at home. In a drama hall, you want to keep the warmth exactly where it wants to stay, indoors. So, insulating your walls will help to heat your home more efficiently. Using less energy reduces carbon dioxide, one of the biggest causes of climate change. It will help stop you wasting money on your energy bills too. In fact, by insulating your solid walls, you could cut your heating costs by up to 40%. By using less energy, your household will produce less carbon dioxide, so insulating your walls is a great way to help fight climate change. In 2010, we received £1,000 from Angus Council Community Grant Scheme to pay for ceiling insulation. This was quite straightforward. We bought space blanket insulation material, easier to work with than the loft roll insulation that isn't held together in a wrap. And we have access to our loft space above the ceiling, thank goodness, and our brave volunteers were able to climb up to lay the material between the joists. We prepared a risk assessment first and made sure everyone was safe. It's a long way to fall. We laid 2 layers of space blanket with a gap around the walls. If the space blanket had gone right up against the walls, we would have trapped moisture, and that could have created damp problems in the future. Buoyed by our success, we applied to the Climate Challenge Fund for just over £18,000 to further insulate the walls, the cooms, the ceiling and the floors. It's a lot of money, and you'd be advised to seek some funding unless you can pay for it yourselves. But first we had to carefully research how to insulate the walls of an old stone-built building in Scotland, which is much more of a challenge than we first thought. If your hall in a damp small Scottish town was built before or around 1920, its external walls are likely to be solid rather than having cavity walls. Cavity walls are made of 2 layers with a small gap or cavity between them. This cavity acts as a barrier to reduce heat flow through the wall. Old stone walls have no such gap, and this allows more heat to pass through them than through cavity walls. In fact, twice as much heat can be lost through the uninsulated solid wall as through an uninsulated cavity wall. But the good news was that, like cavity walls, solid walls can be insulated from the inside or the outside. We looked at 2 options, internal insulation from the inside or external insulation from the outside. Both options would make the hall warmer and more comfortable and greatly reduce our heating bills at the same time. External wall insulation would have involved rendering the exterior walls of the building and would almost certainly have been cheaper than applying the insulating materials to the interior walls as we eventually decided. However, there were access issues both from the point of view of builders being able to physically get their workers and materials to the sites and from the point of view of having to approach our neighbours as all the land immediately around the building is owned by other parties. Also, the exterior of the walls, ashlar sandstone, is still in good condition and the general appearance would not necessarily have been improved from a planning point of view.
We went for the option of insulating from the inside. We did our research and concluded that it would involve the following steps. We would have to clear the hall of all our clobber to give the builders room to operate. We would have to strip the old plaster from the walls and arrange for a skip and labour to remove the spoil. We would have had to put up a new wood frame up against the interior of the exterior stone wall, let me know when I'm losing you, to hold the insulating material away from the stone wall to make sure we would not develop damp problems, i.e. the wall would still have to breathe. Kingspan, a proprietary insulating material, would be attached to the wood frame but not touching the stone wall. New plasterboard would be attached over the kingspan, then taped and decorated.
This was indeed a challenge, and it was on this basis that we applied for funding from the Climate Challenge Fund. However, after we received the grant, further consultation with insulation experts turned up the following information. If your original plaster is in good condition, has a gap between it and the exterior stone wall, and you can identify little air vents in the exterior of your exterior walls to let them breathe, then you do not have to remove the original plaster and can apply the frame and kingspan direct to the original plaster and cover it with plasterboard and tape. Brilliant! Saves money on a skip and a lot of labour, but only if those conditions are evident. And I hope you like dusting. The original plan was simply to invite our builder friends to go below the floors. The old hall has got a cellar shooting gallery below it. Don't ask me why. The builders would go below and simply attach the kingspan between the joists below the floors. Unfortunately, when we went below the floors, we found that they'd been all filled up with rubble from previous renovations, so we couldn't get access. What we had to do was buy a material called Versailles that we put on top of the floorboards and insulates from above. However, that's not very tough, so we had to purchase some vinyl, modern word for lino, to lay on top of it in order to protect it. Despite being fleet-footed aesthetes, the drama hall floor takes quite a bit of abuse from moving props and scenery and other sorts of equipment. We also had to deal with general drafts. Now let's not underestimate this aspect. Nobody likes sitting in a draft. You could end up with Rhizus sardonicus, and your grin will not be wiped away by the accompanying high fuel bills as you pump in more energy to combat all the cold air coming in. To this end, we purchased fire doors as an effective seal against drafts, and also an essential safety feature. And as for the shooting gallery below the floors, the builders built us this plasterboard box to seal in all the drafts and stop all that terrible cold air from whooshing up from below. So, now we have a premises which should be cheaper and easier to heat and more comfortable for our members and audiences. And even now, we are progressing with further works to be able to turn our halls into a theatre.